Hey guys! This is an excerpt of my emotional intelligence training, an online course where you learn practical tools that will help you manage your emotions and have better relationships. The segment was taken from session 2, which is about how to set boundaries. You will find all the information about the training in the description below. Enjoy! Because that's really my goal with this course, to make it as simple and as practical as possible so that you can actually use these skills in your everyday life. And then today we talk about a very interesting topic, how to set boundaries. And boundaries is a topic that has been in the forefront of the self-help industry for some years now. But it's often misunderstood because too often people only think about offense. What are the things you don't want to happen? But that's not all there is about boundaries, and that's what I'm going to share about today. And of course, in general, boundaries are one of the most important relationship skills because it's really making clear what do you want as a person from someone else. That's really when it comes down to, and when you can communicate this as simple as possible to someone, they're gonna love it because they know exactly what you are about and how to please you, how to make a good relationship with you. It's all about clarity. And so before we get into it, I wanted to talk a bit about the two different ways that we have to clarify boundaries. And as many of you probably know, there's this famous movie called Yes Man with Jim Carrey. It's a really great movie where it's about a bit of a grumpy guy. And his problem is that he says no to everything. People invite him to an evening out. He says no. Someone gives him an opportunity. He says no. Someone asks him for help. He says no. And he realizes he's a bit of a negative ninny. And so his solution is that he makes his promise to only say yes to people. And then some crazy things are happening in his life. And of course, he finds the love of his life and so on. So it's quite a nice movie. So this is a really good case because, as I said before, most people only think about the people who can't say no and that have problems with boundaries. And there's many of us have problems saying no. And that's definitely a big problem, especially here when you look at this. If saying yes to others means that you're saying no to yourself, because very often it's important to be able to say no so that you can listen to your own feelings and to your own needs. But there's also people that I think have a lot of fear of being used, for example, or they made bad experiences with people before, or they're very mistrusting that can never say yes, even if really good opportunities present themselves. And that also has to do with boundaries, because boundaries are really about what you truly feel that you want and don't want. And being able to say yes has also to do with being able to set clear boundaries. All right, if that has confused you now a little bit, let's talk about what boundaries are. So, in very simple terms, you can imagine that boundaries are what defines you uniquely, your likes and dislikes. You can imagine there's a line going around you as a person, which separates you from other people. And this line is about what kind of things you like. What is your favorite color? What do you like to do? What activities you like to do? How do you like to be touched? How do you like to be spoken to? What kind of nicknames do you like? Very simple things. And that is different from person to person, and that makes you an individual person. But instead of looking at it like a very concrete wall which separates you, look at it more like a flexible line. Because the beauty about boundaries is that it really depends on your mood, different circumstances, different people you hang out with, or the situation. So, for example, I like it when my partner mate hugs me because he's my partner, but a random stranger on the street, I wouldn't like them to hug me. But for example, when Matt and I have a fight, I necessarily don't like him to hug me. You see? Or maybe I'm in a really angry mood because of work. Then I also don't want him to hug me. So this is what a boundary is. Me wanting my partner to hug me depends a lot on different circumstances. And that's really important to understand. And that doesn't mean that you should be a super moody person and confuse people around you all the time, but just understand that you are a flexible being and your boundary is always how you feel about something, and you have all the right in the world to change a boundary. And that's what I really want to teach you in this session, to communicate this in a really healthy way. So that, but because when other people know exactly what your boundary is, then it's a very healthy and safe relationship, and people really like it because they know exactly what you're about. And yes, of course, your boundaries are directly connected to your feelings, needs, and values. So depending, sort of the example I shared before was really about my own feelings, how do I feel with different people in different circumstances, and then my boundary changes. Of course, also with my needs. If suddenly you have a big need for affection, then I would want to be hugged more. And of course, also my values. It could be that you're a very religious person and you would not, let's say, want to hug someone that is not in your close family or something like this. So it's a very personal thing, and it's all super connected. And then there's two types of boundary violations: an inward and an outward boundary violations. And how you can think about this very easily is the inward boundary violation is about things that others do that you don't like. So, for example, saying unkind things to you, not accepting no, invading your space, of course, harming you, hurting you, anything that doesn't feel good and you don't like that someone else is doing. And that's, I think, what we usually think about when we think about boundary violation. But then there's also an outward boundary violation. And that is about the things that others fail to do, things that others don't do, but you wish that they would do it. So, for example, if you're a person that needs lots of hugs, if your partner or your family doesn't want to give you enough hugs or doesn't give you enough hugs, then it's an outward boundary violation. Or if you are being ignored and you would like to be spoken to. If you would like some assurance, but people don't give it to you. If someone forgets your birthday, but you want them to remember. So anything that you wish that would happen and it just doesn't happen. And this is very interesting because sometimes people do not understand where their pain comes from. And that has often to do with these outward boundary violations. For example, I used to work as a childhood trauma practitioner, so I would help people resolve childhood trauma. And especially here in the West, we sometimes tend to have a bit more colder cultures. And what usually happens is that many children did not experience enough affection when they were younger. And that actually can be really traumatic because we as human beings, we are social creatures, and it's actually very important that we get physical touch, that we get kisses, hugs. It has a lot to do with our mental health, but even our physical health. It all reacts to closeness because that's when we feel safe. So to these people, I always said, okay, why you're traumatized is because certain things did not happen in your childhood that should have happened for you to develop in a healthy way. So remember that, okay? When we talk about the violations, it's things others do that you don't want, but also things others don't do that you wish would happen.